Has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name. I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. Father bless me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turns Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, God. You are everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of love. Send down your warriors with the hello. They carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no rudder. Could there be that wheel in my soul? No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer.
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and P.T. Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the radio and, of course, on the live video stream. At this point, as you know, on a Tuesday, we go live to facilitate the post-cabinet briefing. So we're going to switch over at this point so you can view with us the post-cabinet briefing, who, of course, will be facilitated by the Honorable Minister Peter David and Honorable Minister Yolande Bain Hosford.
Good morning, everyone. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's post-cabinet press briefing. This morning, to facilitate, we have the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Honorable Peter David, who will be taking up a new assignment come October 5th in the Ministry of Agriculture. This morning, however, the focus will be on his current portfolio, Foreign Affairs. Minister David, without any further ado, can you please provide us with an update as to what's been happening?
Thank you, Press Secretary.
Microphone.
Thank you, Philomena. Let me just, first of all, thank you for inviting me here this morning. Thank the media and thank everybody who's out there listening. I am here in capacity as Foreign Affairs, and I am Minister of Foreign Affairs and Labour, but I'm going to speak on Foreign Affairs matters this morning. And of course, if there are any questions, I'm prepared to answer them at the end. First of all, I think the most important thing that is happening now as we speak in Foreign Affairs is the UN General Assembly. UN General Assembly in New York is normally held physically every year. We make very important statements at General Assembly. Sometimes the Prime Minister does his address, and sometimes the Foreign Minister, sometimes the Ambassador. This year, the Prime Minister will be addressing General Assembly later this week, and of course will address the very important issues facing Grenada, not only current issues, but historic issues like development, issues like that concerns the region, keeping the region as a zone of peace, ensuring that development assistance is brought to the region, ensuring that the larger countries understand the development needs, and that programs for multilateral and bilateral cooperation fit into what is best for Grenada and for the Caribbean, because we speak a lot about our Caribbean take positions as CARICOM countries. So the Prime Minister will be addressing the Assembly later this week on these issues. Also, there will be other meetings on the margins. Of course, everybody knows that these meetings are going to be virtual. We live in COVIDious times. The Prime Minister will address the issue of COVID, and I think COVID-19 will form a substantial part of not only debate at General Assembly, but in the meetings that are going to be held on the margins. In fact, yesterday there was a meeting that I was in touch with the participants on, which is particularly dealing with the COVID issue and how countries in the region are going to confront this COVID phenomena. So the General Assembly, as I indicated when I started, is extremely important for Grenada, extremely important from the world. It is a one time that all of the countries in the world get together. We get an opportunity to speak with each other and to each other on the issues that concern us. Unfortunately, we are unable to do the physical bilaterals that take place on the margins of the meeting every year. Hopefully next year we can go back to that. While Zoom is a good way to do meetings, it's not always the best way. That personal touch is sometimes extremely important in developing relationships. So that's the one major issue taking place on the international front. There are others coming up in the future, but as we speak, the UN General Assembly in New York is the major meeting taking place at this time. The other important issue in foreign affairs, one that really affects our development, is our report to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Grenada has just submitted in the last week its third report to the UN Human Rights Council. It's in 2010, we presented our first report. In 2015, the second report, and 2020, the third report. We do it every 5 years. I did the first report in 2010 as Foreign Minister. It was done by Mr. Branch, who is legal counsel at the Ministry of Legal Affairs and works closely with us at Foreign Affairs. He did the second report in 15, and I did the third report. I visited Geneva early this year, to present Grenada's report. And what the report does is outline progress made on the human rights front. We must all recognize that the issue of human rights is extremely important, not just because it affects our citizens and the human rights of our citizens, but it also impacts on our bilateral and multilateral relations. Countries use the Human Rights Report to determine what kinds of assistance you get. So every 5 years we meet at the UN, we present our report, and that report is listened to by members of the UN Human Rights Commission, and they give us recommendations. This year we got 148 recommendations. I must say that the report is not prepared by the government. The report is prepared by the government in collaboration with NGOs, community groups, women's groups, advocates in specific areas. And it covers a multitude of areas. Education, it covers the prisons, it covers all of the areas that the UN determines affects human rights in Grenada. We got 148 recommendations. from the council and from the members, and we've responded to them. Some of them we've adopted, some of them we've accepted, and some of them we're noted, meaning that while we understand the demands in that direction, Grenada is not accepting those recommendations. So there are some that we accept and some that we don't. And I want to report, for example, the report talks about the establishing of a national human rights institution, which is an institution in Grenada where all of the areas of human rights will be in a sense that will be the focal point. And we've agreed, the government has agreed that in the short term that the office of the ombudsman will be that office to facilitate with new staff in order to deal with the human rights issues as arise. It also deals with the question of ratification of treaties and conventions like the Forced Labor Convention, a convention against forced labor. We've agreed with that. It also deals with the question of education, the right to education. Grenada accepts that. Discrimination, social awareness programs, we accept those. Women's rights and women's empowerment, there's a whole multitude, and the report is available, and we can make it available to any group or individuals who want to have a peep at it. And as I said, it is not a government document. It is a government where we in Foreign Affairs lead, but social development and several areas of our society come together to prepare the report. And I want to thank the persons. I don't want to name anybody now because there are quite a few of them. I want to thank everyone who's come together to help in the preparation and delivery of the report. I want to thank them for their hard work, their honesty, their forthrightness, and to say that the government is doing everything in its power to ensure that the human rights of the population is protected. And, for example, the issue of child labor and issues like that, we are doing everything to ensure that the country is not in violation of international human rights standards. And as I said, it is not the purview of the government alone. It is all of civil society and other civil society groups who come together to make commentary on that. And I want to thank all of them and all of the persons who did everything to ensure that today. The fact is that that report is extremely important if you are to maintain our bilateral and multilateral connections. So, because, we live in a time when development assistance will have attached to it our commitments, and not only our commitments, but our adherence to human rights. And we have been doing as much as we can, and I assure the population that they can call and make representation on any of these issues at any time. The other issue I want to address is the diaspora, another critical issue falling under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at this time. We are in the process. We held a very excellent meeting with a few hundred members of persons living in the diaspora to develop a policy document. That policy document, we're being assisted in developing it by the International Organization of Migration, and they have given us funding, and they have also assisted in employing an expert who assists us in developing the policy document. We are in the last stages of the policy document. We now have a draft which is being submitted to the community for discussions, the diaspora. It has been submitted to the cabinet. Cabinet has established a subcommittee of the cabinet led by myself at this time to review the policy document, and hopefully that policy document by the end of the year will become government's policy on diaspora. And I want to reiterate something on that. The issue of diaspora involvement, we remain committed to ensure that the diaspora is involved in the development of this country. The diaspora is not only important if we want them to send some stuff to us. That is important. Remittances are extremely important to our budget and to the maintenance of many persons in Grenada. But it is not the only thing. The diaspora must become involved in the development of this country in several other ways. And as I said before, and I repeat, not only materially, but with respect to their ideas. I repeat again, my view of the diaspora as the 16th constituency, they are extremely important, though they do not have voting rights. Staying in the diaspora and voting, they have the right to involvement in the development of this country. And we are, through this diaspora policy, trying to find a mechanism that does not make it dependent on any particular government or any particular person. That it is a policy, that this policy is laid in Parliament, and the diaspora knows how to be involved, and we have a mechanism for their involvement. Soon, we will be establishing an office of the diaspora in St. George's where persons can go to speak about diaspora issues. We will be establishing that office. We are currently in talks with a particular ministry in that regard. We will make an announcement in due course, but we'll put the infrastructure in place and the policy in place to ensure that the diaspora remains an integral part, but not doing what we've always done to find new ways of getting them involved in development. For example, there's no reason why the diaspora should not be involved in actual development projects. There's no reason why the diaspora cannot come together or do it individually or collectively to work on development projects. They are as important as any other investor in coming into Grenada. So the diaspora policy is being worked on. Cabinet has established a subcommittee in order to have that policy completed by the end of the year, and hopefully once we get the policy going and the diaspora itself has been sufficiently consulted on it, and they have been, and I want to thank our ambassadors out there, ambassador in Toronto, ambassador in London, ambassador in Washington, in New York, all of our ambassadors in Brussels, in Dubai. In fact, I had a meeting with some Grenadians in Dubai recently on their participation. I want to thank all of our ambassadors for the hard work that they have done in ensuring that our diaspora becomes more involved and that our diaspora is satisfied that their involvement is being treated seriously. Because I've lived, as I said many times, in the diaspora. I know sometimes the diaspora is upset that they're not treated seriously. We hope that this policy document will not make that dependent on any individual or any particular government, but it will be pursuant to an actual policy that has been put in place. So I want to thank everyone who has been involved, all of the ambassadors, honorary consuls, consulates throughout the world who've been assisting us in that regard to develop the policy, and hopefully by next year we'll be on track to the implementation of the policy. Those are the main issues. I just want to also say thanks to all of the persons who supported the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the staff at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, both locally and internationally, who have worked extremely hard to make my tenure in Foreign Affairs a success. I look forward to working with you in the future. And though I'll be moving to another ministry, believe you me, the diaspora and our international, in fact, I said to somebody the other day that our embassies will become outposts for the Ministry of Agriculture. In other words, I will ask for a little space, a little desk or a little tile somewhere in each embassy so we can push agriculture. But that's a subject for the future. I just say that by way of saying thank you to everybody who has assisted the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the staff, the permanent secretary, the secretaries, everybody who's done an excellent job in ensuring that our diplomacy and our outreach to the world has redounded to the benefit of each sector in the country. I want to thank also all the ambassadors from other countries who are here in Grenada, resident in Grenada, those who are non-resident, all the consulars, charge affairs in Grenada for working with me over the last several years as foreign minister to ensure that we pursue the dream that we all have, which is the development of this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister David, for that opening statement. Members of the media who are present in the Zoom chat, if you have any questions, please indicate and we'll get right down to the question and answer segment of today's post-cabinet press briefing. Do we have any questions? We do have Linda Straker present. We have GBN. We have MTV. We also have Nancy Maguire of the Grenadian Voice. Do we have questions from any members of the media this morning?
Yes, I have some questions.
Hi, Irina. Good morning. You may proceed with your questions. Please ask two at first, just to allow any other journalist with questions to have an opportunity to do so, and then we'll circle back around, okay?
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Minister, Peter David, I would like to ask you first off, just to clarify, what sort of rights is this policy going to be giving persons in the diaspora? I understand some of the things that you said, but I just want to zero down on what exactly would the policy be focusing on exactly? What sort of rights would these people get? Also, I would like to ask you, could you give us an update as it relates to the traders? What is happening with the sea traders from Trinidad to Grenada? Those who would normally travel every week, what is the latest as it relates to them? And my final question for now is, could you give me an update as it relates to the fishermen that is still in the Dominican Republic?
Thank you for your questions, Rena.
Yes, thanks, Rena. With respect to the diaspora policy, and I can make we can have a more substantive discussion later, but essentially we're looking at ways in which the diaspora can become engaged. For example, we are looking at each sector. We're looking at what is the most important things that affect the diaspora communities. For example, do they want to invest in agriculture? Are they interested in agriculture? Are they interested in building homes in Grenada? Are they interested in fisheries? What is the main interest? And then we look at what is the impediment, what is stopping them from more involvement. Of course, we look at the traditional things like remittances, contacts, how do they get to the ministries. One of the major issues they've had traditionally is sending assistance to Grenada. So everybody gets together. We have hundreds of Grenada groups sending things to Grenada. How do we streamline that? But we are looking at bigger things in this period. How do we get them involved in development? How do we get their voices heard? You know, we've heard many recommendations. A lot of these recommendations are going to come and are coming from the diaspora themselves. So, for example, there have been requests from as extreme as wanting voting rights to representation in the Senate to having appointments. So there's a whole lot of discussion taking place, and we are not yet down to determining exactly why we are going to land on it. But those are the kinds of things we are discussing. So if persons in the diaspora decide they want to invest in Grenada, what kind of concessionary arrangements we can make for Grenadians living in the diaspora? What kinds of arrangements can we make with GIDC for them to have some special arrangement? Do we make land available to them? How do we interact with them? How do we politically ensure? Do we establish, for example, in the diaspora, an overarching organization so that we don't have to deal with 200 organizations from a football club? You know, Rangers Football Club might have a support group. I know Comancheros in St. Paul's has a support group. How do we get them to filter into an overarching umbrella organization so that they have more strength? When they more strength in their discussions about involvement in Grenada and so on and so forth. So those are the kinds of things that we are trying to do, essentially aimed at getting to that. Everybody knows the importance. We have more people, I understand, living outside of Grenada who are Grenadian citizens than Grenadians in Grenada. That is an extremely powerful and important developmental tool, meaning that if we are able to, in a sense, harness the energies and the resources of the diaspora community, we can do wonders. The question is, how do we do it? There have been models from Jamaica to India to Israel. You know the strength of the Israeli diaspora in the United States. Everybody knows that. And how do they get their strength? They, in the U.S., organize to vote in a particular direction. So do Grenadians in New York organize themselves to use the political influence that they have in the interest of their country? How do we do that? How do we as a government assist them with that? The way the Israelis do it in the United States. The Indian communities done it. Modi visited the U.S. recently, and I was shocked by the amount of Indians who came out to support Modi. So things like that, all aimed at ensuring that we harness the energies and resources of our diaspora community. And I always say, the further away our people go from Grenada is the more patriotic they become. How do we harness that patriotism with a sense of collective responsibility for the development of our country so that that energy and those resources available can be used for development? And of course, we will not all agree. Let us forget the tribal politics for now. I know living in the diaspora, people, although they talk about who they vote for, but they talk about Grenada. And that is what the diaspora policy is aimed at doing, harnessing the energies and resources of our diaspora for the purposes of development.
Minister.
The second question you asked about the seed traders from Trinidad, well, there's a problem there. I'm not sure. I don't speak as the Minister for Trade on that matter, but certainly a lot of the issues are related to Trinidad's policy. We are well aware that the only issue that arises on that matter is COVID-19. And the attempts by Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that their country is safe, and the attempts by the Grenada government to ensure that we do not import COVID-19 from Trinidad. So there are restrictions. The Ministry for Foreign Affairs is not directly involved in it. It's done by the Ministry of Trade and other ministries. But certainly what is being done is in the interest of the country. And the third issue of fishermen in the DR, I want to thank our honorary council, one of these persons we appoint as honorary councils who live in the Dominican Republic, for assisting us in the DR. The problem with the DR is to travel from the DR to Grenada. Despite the fact that the Dominican Republic is just up the road, up the islands, it is difficult. They are still there. The Honorary Council is in touch with Grenada. The Permanent Secretary in Foreign Affairs, Alva Brown, has been in touch consistently with the Honorary Council, as he is in touch with the Honorary Council in the Philippines, who's also helped a seaman, a guy who worked on a ship who got stuck in the Philippines. Again, another honorary council that we appointed in the Philippines to take care of that matter. Similarly with honorary councils in China, honorary councils all over the world, they've been helping us. And I made the point in Parliament the other day, if we didn't have these appointments over there, first of all, we can't afford to pay all these guys, because these guys work for $10,000 and $20,000 a month in their jobs. But they are honorary councils, and we appoint them, as does every other country in the world. We appoint them to assist us in crises like this. And without them, COVID-19 would have been a much different result for us in Grenada. So the fishermen in the DR, we are working with them to get them back home. I'm not sure what's the latest on that, but if you call me later, I can give you an update. I know Mr. Brown speaks to him every couple of days. I can give you an update later. But they are well so far, and we're working hard to get them back into Grenada. Thanks, Rena.
Thank you, Minister. Up next, we have Linda Straker. Linda, please go ahead with your questions.
Hello, good morning to you, Taylor and the Minister. I do have quite a number of questions, but I'm going to ask 3 to start, and if possible, then I can come again.
Thank you.
My first question is related to the diaspora policy. I would like to know if for now the policy is targeting Grenadians persons who are born in Grenada, then travel to, whether it's Toronto, the UK, or the US. Is it targeting them, or is it also targeting children that they would have even gone to in those parts of the world? So they would be classified 2 different types.
Sure.
My other question has to do with the Universal Human Rights report. And I do remember that on January 27th, Grenada would have gone through that review, you and Mr.
Branch. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things coming out of it was the UK as well as the US. They want, in the case of the UK wants Grenada to repeal all legal provisions that discriminate against persons on the ground of sexual orientation and gender identity. While in the case of the USA, they want Grenada to amend Article 32 of the Employment Act to expressly prohibit hazardous work for children and trafficking of children in all cases. Can you tell me whether these comments are among those that has been noted, or those that are really going to see action being taken on? And my final question is, for now, is futuristically, as of early October, you will become the Minister for Agriculture. The talk and trend now is this whole issue of the decriminalization, in some cases, the legalization of cannabis or marijuana. Last night on another program, you mentioned that there was a committee, and when and you named the members, but which was led by Agriculture, but in your case, you was not part of it. When you get into there, what will be your priorities as with regard to starting the discussion or having engagements with regard to that trend of decriminalization or legalization of cannabis? Thank you for now.
Thank you for your questions, Linda. Minister?
Thank you, Linda. With respect to the diaspora, no, in fact, You remember the law was recently amended to include grandchildren in some cases. So grandchildren of Grenadians are also now eligible to apply for citizenship. So it covers all of that. Anyone who is a Grenadian citizen falls under the diaspora or diaspora project. In fact, I have found, while I lived in Britain, that some of the most patriotic Grenadians in London or in Britain are the children of that first generation who went. You see, the thing about living in England is that it's not an immigrant society. The US is an immigrant society, so all immigrants feel equal. Even the president, his family was an immigrant. Unless you are a native Indian in the US, you are an immigrant. In the UK, it's slightly different. So the kids of Grenadians in the United Kingdom always look for their roots, which is Grenada. So I have found that particularly in the United Kingdom, the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Grenadians are some of the most flag-waving patriots that you see around the world. You go to Notting Hill Carnival and you see all these young people. Some of them never seen Grenada, but they wave the Grenadian flag and they're very proud, extremely proud to be Grenadian. So yes, we are targeting them also because the young people in the diaspora have talents that we need in IT, technology, and all new fields of endeavor. The younger generation in the diaspora are extremely important. And if we were to fail to address those, we will be doing a disservice to the development of the country and a disservice to their patriotic spirit that they want. So yes, the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, anybody who has a root can come, and then the offspring, because the truth is, we need to get more people involved in the process. I've always said, and I don't want to belabor the point, that one of our biggest developmental challenges is the size of our population. We don't have enough people, but we can get very good, talented people, the way Canada did it, by focusing on Grenadians who are very talented and are contributing to the development of the diaspora. You go to New York and Toronto and London and these places. Grenadians play an extremely important role in the development of the country. Why can't we do it for Grenada? Now, many of them can't come to live, but you don't need to live. Look, the UN General Assembly is being conducted this morning with the foreign ministers in capitals and the prime minister in capitals. Why can't we use our diaspora where they are? We have Zoom and all this technology. So yes, Linda, important question. I want to reinforce that point. Secondly, the question of the human rights report. Yes, we did accept the one on we accept that on the issue of trafficking and trafficking of persons. Grenada accepts the recommendations on trafficking that we receive. With LGBTQ, that's a different issue because, quite frankly, countries can only do what countries can do. And all of the human rights recommendations, those that we have accepted, have to be first accepted by our people. So while we have things like LGBTQ and death penalty, these are issues that will depend. So persons might feel passionate about the need to address it and to deal with it. For example, Barbados is now dealing with the question of same-sex marriages. Maybe one day Grenada will come to that, but at this time, Grenada cannot accept those recommendations because it does not reflect the wishes of the Grenadian people. And that is as simple as we put it to our partners who would like us to do that. If the Grenadian people, as 20, 30 years from now, decide to go, or 5 years from now, 1 year from now, decide to go in that direction, that's fine. But the government can only reflect what the people want. This is a government that has been elected by the people and will do what the people, despite what the individuals may think. And that is what we've said to our partners at the UN. And Grenada is not the only country who has done that. Many countries have done that. The countries in Africa and the Caribbean and Latin America and so on have done that. So on those rights, Grenada has what we say noted. In other words, we noted the concerns, but we cannot act on them at this time. So that was Grenada's position with respect to the human rights report. And as I said, individuals might differ on that, but the government has to take a position that is reflective of the people. Which brings me to the third question, which is position on cannabis. And I'll refer you to a survey that was done sometime by my dear friend Peter Wickham. I think it was a survey done in Grenada in 2018, in Grenada. He did it throughout the Caribbean, a survey on the issue of legalization of cannabis. And I'll come back. I just say that to segue in from what you're saying in terms of where the government stands. 30% of Grenadians, and you know Peter Wickham is one of the premier, he did this for Carriacou, he's one of the premier, pollsters in the region, that he's been correct on more occasions than not. 30% of Grenadians, and this is his report, this what I'm giving you is contained in the report of the Regional Marijuana Commission that was referred to by the spokesperson for the NDC that you referred to earlier today. In this report, his polling was revealed. 30% of Grenadians accepted full legalization. 31% supported partial decriminalization. 22% said it should remain illegal, and 17% they were unsure or refused to comment. So I just tell you that to say where the Grenadian population is. Now, with respect to the regional position that was referred to, in 2018, on the 4th of July, 2018, the Carriacou Conference, which is the meeting where all the heads are present, including the Prime Minister of Grenada, the issue of cannabis decriminalization, or how we address cannabis, was raised. It was a report of the Regional Marijuana Commission, entitled Report of the Regional Marijuana Commission. It stated that the meeting agreed, the conference agreed, one, and this is all heads of government in the region, agreed that action was necessary at the national level by the relevant authorities to review the current status of marijuana as a dangerous drug with a view to reclassification, taking into account all international obligations. It also went on to say the conference also agreed that each member state, Grenada, Jamaica, Dominica, Antigua, St. Lucia, each member state, in accordance with its own circumstances, would determine the path it would pursue in relation to the law reform models proposed by the Regional Marijuana Commission. Now, the commission established by the regional conference came up with several models. And some countries, for example, Antigua has gone ahead and decriminalized. Some countries have done nothing. Some countries have established committees. Some countries have established commission. What Grenada did, after agreeing to the commission's report, was to establish a committee of the cabinet comprising the Minister of Health, the Minister of Agriculture, and the Minister of Legal Affairs. And that committee is expected to determine the way to proceed to implement the commission's report. Now, remember, it says that each country in accordance with its own circumstances. One of the circumstances we have in Grenada is the results of the polls done by the very eminent pollster Peter Wickham. So there has to be consultation. Now, we are going to proceed in a way that takes everybody along with us. We are not government. Is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. So the government has to consult. So the Committee of Cabinet has already started. They are looking at the models in the region, the models outside of the region, where the issue of cannabis has been dealt with. Canada took a particular road. Some states in the U.S. took a particular road. Other states took a different road. So Denver, it's legal. In other countries, in other states, it's not legal. So Grenada has to determine. Because, you see, we have to be careful. Because remember, the Commission also said that it is not recommended that cannabis should be used for anyone under the age of 24. And the question is decriminalization. Now, I got a question last night about what is the difference between decriminalization and legalization. Legalization is saying anybody can do anything with weed. You could smoke, you could drink it, you could boil it, you could plant it, you could do anything. It's fully legal. Decriminalization is similar to what you do if you have a driving, for example. You're driving over the speed limit. You get a ticket, but you don't get a criminal record. Some countries that said, listen, Antigua and so on, if you have a certain amount, maybe an ounce, 2 ounces, it's not legal, but it is not a criminal offense. And that addresses the concern that many people have, that tons of young people end up with a criminal record. They can't go and study. I've had cases in the court where men apply to university, they get to university, but they catch up with a little joint when they were 16 or 17 or 18, well, 18 years old, and they can't go and study. So this question of decriminalization addresses those concerns. And there are many other concerns. And of course, there are people who are concerned about the mental state of persons. Does it affect? There are people who have all kinds of different views on marijuana. So what is the cabinet going to do? As the government of the people, it's going to, this committee, which is the Minister of Agriculture, I'll be Minister of Agriculture. So yes, Linda, I expect as Minister of Agriculture, I'll be on the committee. The Minister of Health, Nicholas Steele, and the Minister of Legal Affairs, Kendra Maturin Stroud. We will have to sit down and determine how do we get consultation. We already have, which I said last night was a good thing. The NDC has indicated that they support decriminalization. So we know the consultation with them should be easy. Although I said to them last night, please don't do what you did in the referendum, which is come today with this issue, tomorrow. It is not a political football to be kicked around. It's a serious issue. It's a very serious issue. So let us address it not as a member of a tribe, but as a country. Let us take some issues and just deal with them as national development issues rather than political football. So let us sit down and talk. Let us talk with all of the stakeholders, the farmers, the religious community, the youth in our country. Let us talk and come up with the correct policy. Government has already agreed to address the issue. The Prime Minister, I heard some people playing a tape of the Prime Minister in 2017 or something like that, where he said he won't do it. But I asked them to listen to the tape the following year when he said that we should address the issue going forward of possession of small quantities. I listened to it yesterday. So the Prime Minister, like many of us, has evolved on the issue of cannabis. And that is normal. I mean, you have many people who 5 years ago would have killed somebody on that, but they've evolved because they've listened. And that is what a good leader does. You listen, you learn, you evolve. And there is an evolution on his part. So what I said when I was 16 years old, God forbid, you know, I want to say that today. So let us all evolve. Let us listen, let us learn, and let us come up with a policy, this decision that is good for the country. Let us not make political football of cannabis. The government has already agreed to implement the Caribbean Commission, the Regional Marijuana Commission recommendation to address the issue, bearing in mind its own circumstances, and we are going to learn the best model in which to address it, and I assure you that soon we'll be addressing it. My personal view on this is of no moment to anyone. My personal view, like a lot of things in my personal life, is my personal view. What is important is that we take on board the views of the people who Peter Wickham polled to show where they stand on marijuana possession, decriminalization, legalization, or whatever other position you take with respect to marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm sure this will continue to be a very topical issue.
Well, that's good forward. Because, you know, Philomena, we must debate issues, but debate it with a spirit of coming to the right decision for the country. There are times I change my mind because you've convinced me. That's the way it is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Nancy Maguire, you have questions?
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I was just wondering how you're going to make that your report on the human rights available to the public. And secondly, on the pursuit of a diaspora policy, what role and impact is the whole COVID-19 going to play in this development? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. With respect to the human rights report, I'll consult with the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and look into how we are going to ensure that persons are available. It is available to the Commission, so I should see no difficulty there. With respect to diaspora policy and COVID-19, yes, it will have an impact. COVID-19 has done a lot to open our eyes as to advantages and disadvantages, some advantages and disadvantages. One of the difficulties COVID-19 has shown us is how vulnerable we are, how vulnerable we are to outside shocks. Because, we all knew, those of us who struggled through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that Grenada's economy, those of us in 2008 with the recession, that in the United States and other countries, how vulnerable we are to economic shocks. A recession in the U.S., as Maurice Bishop always said, when they sneeze, we catch the cold. So we knew that from the standpoint of the economies. What we were less conscious of is the impact a pandemic or a health crisis would cause on us. I know we've seen it. The lesson is that we can be cut off from the diaspora, that the linkages between the diaspora community and the Grenada community can be cut off. For example, persons who send stuff for our communities here. Agriculture has been looked at now more in a more focused way to see how we can become a bit more, not self-sufficient, but certainly less dependent, because we'll never be self-sufficient, really, a little more less dependent on the outside. But also, but here's a positive. How can we remain in touch with all of our communities without flying? How do we ensure that we meet? Look, we're meeting now, Nancy. I'm not seeing you in front of me, but we're doing a fairly decent job of having a press conference. We can interact with the diaspora similarly. Also, the question of the diaspora being a source of tourism. A lot of the tourists from North America are not flying now, from the United Kingdom, from Canada, from Germany. But a diaspora community can come down and visit and stay at home if there's home quarantine. So there's a whole lot we can discuss with respect to the advantages of keeping, because you see, our diaspora is important for tourism also. They visit, remember Carnival. Some of us, it's 2 years now, it's a year, we haven't had Carnival this year, but the diaspora community is extremely important around Carnival. How do we deal with that? So we are having those discussions. In fact, as I leave this conference, I have a Zoom meeting with the diaspora policy guys to work it out. And it's going to impact on it. The question is, how do we look at the diaspora in the context of circumstances like COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Minister. Rachel Bain, MTV, you have questions for the Minister?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rachel Bain, MTV. I have 4 questions, right? The Minister spoke of policies to protect the rights of people in the diaspora. My question is, will the government be making any move or implementing any policies to protect people seeking asylum in Grenada? And I'm asking this because oftentimes there are people who come to Grenada seeking asylum and they are tried, charged, and sentenced to prison. In some cases, 9 months to a year, sometimes more. So what kind of policies, or will the government be making any moves to protect these people?
You said you had 4.
1 and 2, as the incoming Minister of Agriculture, what do you see as the most urgent issue facing the sector? Do I have to say all my questions? So you can just answer 2.
Ask all of them. Go ahead with the next 2.
Could you repeat?
Go ahead with the other 2. Go ask your 4 questions.
Okay. What is Grenada's reaction to what appears to be a change from the new government of Guyana in the Carriacou position on Venezuela and its apparent adoption of the U.S. position of the regime change? That's 3 and 4. Does Grenada view the visit by the U.S. Secretary General Mike Pompeo to Guyana and Suriname as part of an ongoing attempt by Washington to divide the region on such issues in Venezuela?
Okay, thank you, Rachel. On the issue of the rights of persons who seek asylum, there is a process. In fact, there's a UN process on persons who come into the country seeking asylum. Now, bear in mind that all countries are subject to this process. People going to the US, going to the UK, going to several countries in the world seeking asylum. It does not mean that somebody walks over the border and they get asylum. It doesn't work like that. Persons have to prove that they have a legitimate basis on which they apply for asylum. You've seen what happened in Europe over the last several years, which some of it was really a tragedy, the way some European countries dealt with it. And, you know, Germany, Merkel dealt with it in a much more open, humane way than some other countries in Europe. So countries have different approaches, but certainly there is a process through which an application for asylum is made. In Grenada, the UN certainly will become involved in it. We have the Red Cross here. The Red Cross will be contacted. The Red Cross becomes a focal point. They will assess the legitimacy of the claim. They will contact the UN guys. I've had guys come to me and seeking advice on it. I've told them they have to go through the process. And if the claim is legitimate, they can get asylum. You see, an application for political asylum does not mean they stay in Grenada, because other countries can accept them. So the UN has a mechanism. The UN can contact the US. There are persons who sought asylum while in Grenada, but the asylum was granted in the United States. So there is not, when you hear somebody applying for asylum, it doesn't mean asylum in Grenada. It means asylum from the country, meaning they are facing persecution on whatever basis the persecution might be done. They're facing persecution. They come to Grenada to get away from the persecution and a safe place. They remain in Grenada as a safe place while they seek the asylum. Now, when they get to Grenada, they are subject to the laws of Grenada, meaning that the government can decide, or not the government, sorry, the courts can decide, and then the government can intervene to have discussions on the issue, that they allow them to remain in Grenada at liberty if the claim seems to be a very good claim and the person seems to be somebody that you can rely on. But if the claim seems to be a dubious claim, or if it is that a person does not have anybody to take care of them, so for example, somebody may land and there's nobody willing to accept them in, then what do? I can't force Philomena here to take somebody into a house, or the government can't be held to pay for everybody who comes in for asylum. The UN, which is the UN, has a human rights, what do you call it, refugee agency. So they can get involved. So it's a fairly complex matter, and sometimes it's simplified in order to explain it. But so yes, we do have a mechanism, and somebody seeking asylum, we've dealt with it in cabinet. There are persons who have been released into the community. There are persons who have accepted persons seeking asylum, and there are persons who have come to Grenada and gone on to the US or Britain or wherever in pursuant to their claim for asylum. So Grenada does have a policy on that, but the policy is driven by UN agreements and UN treaties that Grenada is a party to. With respect to the issue of, what was the second question, policy? The most urgent, well, I have not been yet briefed. There's only one minister sitting in the Ministry of Agriculture at any one time. I am not that minister. I will have a meeting soon where I will be fully briefed by the Minister of Agriculture, who I must say here today has done an excellent job. It's my view, quite frankly, that she had a passion for agriculture. I know her in cabinet working very hard to get more for farmers. Sometimes it's difficult because you're competing against tourism, you're competing against education, you're competing against social development. And in COVID, let me tell you, it's difficult because people losing their jobs, they need social assistance. People, houses are burned sometimes, they need assistance to build their house. Tourism needs to be built back up so we can. So it's a limited pot, and ministers have to fight hell hard to get as much of the pot that you can have based on the importance that the case you make. And I would argue that Yolande Bain-Horsfeld has made an extremely positive, or should I say, an aggressive attempt to get for agriculture what is needed, and she's done an excellent job, and I want to commend her. When I am debriefed, and on the 5th of October, when I become the Minister for Agriculture, I will remember your question, I remember your name, and you will come back to me. At that point, when I am the minister, I will tell you what is the urgent task facing us at that time. But it certainly will go along in the footsteps of Yolande Bain-Horsfeld, who has been an excellent, in my view, an excellent advocate for farmers and a true Minister of Agriculture. I hope to do well But that depends on all of us coming together. All of us listening must come. Agriculture is not the Minister of Agriculture's his alone. It's all of us. So people who are talking a lot out there, they'll come and put their money where their mouth is or their energy where their mouth is, and let us get agriculture kicking. On the other issue of Guyana, CARICOM maintains its position with respect to Venezuela, non-interference in the internal affairs of Venezuela. We believe that maintaining the region as a zone of peace is of paramount importance to all of us. We believe the issues confronting Venezuela must be resolved by Venezuelans. We believe that the issue of regime change is not something that should be placed on the agenda of other countries. And certainly, all of CARICOM has agreed to that. And we hope that all of CARICOM sticks to that. We've had differences. We've had differences in the region, but none of these differences rose to the level where any member state said they would participate in the interference in the internal affairs of a member state, of CARICOM and of Venezuela, which is outside of CARICOM. So, with respect to Venezuela, a regional country, although not a member of CARICOM, we hope that Guyana sticks to that. Secretary of State Pompeo has the right to visit any country. If he chooses to come to Grenada tomorrow, we will certainly welcome Secretary of State Pompeo. But Grenada's policy is Grenada's policy. We will listen, and I hope that's what Guyana will do. Listen. They have a right to invite Secretary of State Pompeo, presidents of other countries, but we hope that they stick to the CARICOM position, which is non-interference in Venezuela's internal affairs. Let the Venezuelan people resolve the issues internal to them. And that is what I urge Guyana as Foreign Minister. I speak now as Foreign Minister. That is what I urge. I reflect the views of our Prime Minister. I reflect the views of regional governments. And I reflect the views of what I believe is the position of the vast majority of Caribbean people who believe that Venezuela has been a friend of Grenada. Venezuela is going through some difficulties. There are things that they may disagree with Venezuela on, but one thing they agree on is that Venezuelan internal affairs is Venezuela's business, and therefore there should be no intervention. And therefore, we urge them to maintain the position of CARICOM while they are free to have all kinds of diplomatic engagements and visits. Please do not renege on the principle that this region should be maintained as a zone of peace. Thank you, Ms. Bain.
Thank you very much for your responses there, Minister. Rena, I know you had some follow-up questions. We're running up against the clock, but maybe if you can put a couple more to the Minister before we wrap up this morning. Rena?
You decide on time.
It's okay, Ms. Roberts. Ms. Stricker asked my questions.
Oh, I see. So you're covered. Linda, did you have? I lost the conversation in the chat, so I'm not sure who had follow-up questions. Linda, did you have follow-up questions or additional questions?
I do have follow-up questions, but I see in the chat that Ms. Kalisha Fari said she had questions. So I will give it to her and probably come back to me.
She seems to have left the conversation, so you may proceed with your questions, Linda.
Okay. Well, thank you. My questions are relating to the UN General Assembly. Can you tell us, Minister, when will our PM be addressing and probably the time and the date?
We will make public the time. The date is hopefully on Friday. It's very fluid when PM's address takes place, because it's, as we get closer to the time, we will inform the nation, because it's even more difficult now with virtual, because it's the length of speeches and so on. But certainly, we hope it's Friday. Am I correct?
I don't have confirmation of the date.
Yes. Yeah, we hope it's Friday. We hope it's Friday. Sometime on Friday, he will make his address. But that depends on a very fluid situation taking place at the UN headquarters in New York City.
Over the years, we know during the General Assembly, Grenada and other islands would sign, ratify or send to various conventions that either we would have delayed on or that is new. Can you tell us will there be the system this year, does it make room for ratification or signing of convention? And if it does, what will Grenada be signing this year?
Well,
and my last question for you, you are saying goodbye to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but can you share with us what you would have seen as your greatest challenge and achievement, as well as your lowest point in the ministry? What would have been that point that made you very broken? Thank you.
With respect to agreements in New York, no, we have none that we are signing. We're hoping to discuss, and the ministry has a list of some that are outstanding. I'll have to get back to you on that. But so we have to pick off one or two, but we have some outstanding, and the methodology to get it done has proven a little bit challenging. So I'll get back to you. It's a very important question, but I'll have to get back to you. With respect to my comments on foreign affairs, I will be making some further statements on that, but certainly I believe that we've kept Grenada's presence in the international community very much alive. We've established excellent relations with several countries. My visit to Russia was extremely important. My visit to India, critical, continued relations with China. But Linda, please reserve that comment for a day when I will give a full report on my tenure, and certainly I will do it with the media present, a full report on the tenure in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my low points, my high points. My low points sometimes comes at the point where I think regionally we can do more collectively, and then you think you have it on track, and then a regional country just peels off and goes. And I think we need more coordination at the foreign affairs level in the region. I'll speak to the specific instances when we get the chances to address the issue, but certainly that has been a challenge for us. But then again, it's a challenge for most regional arrangements. In Europe, I remember that was one of the challenges of the European Union, getting a unified foreign policy. We've been working towards that in the region, but it's proven to be quite difficult. So on the issue of Venezuela, on the issue of voting at the UN. So there are times when we think we are all united, and I think we have much more strength like this rather than like this. But some countries peel off and do their own thing. I guess, at the end of the day, each nation seeks its own interest, and that is a tenet in foreign policy, that they only come collective when collective suits their own interest. So that is always a challenge, and I'm not talking about any peculiar challenge to me. That's a challenge of most countries in pursuit of foreign policies that is coordinated with other countries. The African Union, I mean, look at the WTO arrangement. Right now, we're trying to get a new Director General at WTO, and there are two African countries up in the running. You have Kenya and you have Nigeria. We would have hoped that the African Union would get one candidate, so it makes it more than likely, in fact, nearly impossible to defeat Africa. But we have Nigeria, we have Kenya. We would have hoped that regional entity, the African Union, would have been able to resolve that. So I'm not talking anything peculiar to Carriacou or to Grenada, but that is a bit of a low point all of the time. But we'll get to some details on my high points, my low points, and how I saw foreign affairs and where my views of foreign affairs going down the road. But thank you, Linda, and thank you for all the support you've given, and thank you to all the journalists present and everybody who is listening for the support they've given me as Minister for Foreign Affairs. But this would not be my last word on foreign affairs. I'll be back to give my final report at some point. Thank you.
Minister, we have Callistra Faria, who has rejoined the conversation, and she has a couple of questions. Callistra, you may proceed.
Good morning. I hope my system is a bit unstable. Can you hear me clearly?
We're hearing you, but with a lot of interference, so we'll try.
My question, good morning, Minister.
Morning.
My question is regarding the Charles Lee diplomatic passport. Can you give me a status update on that? Is the passport still valid and in use, still valid but not in use, or has it been revoked?
That's you want? You have other questions? No, I mean, yeah, is that your only question, or you have some other questions?
Callistra, is that your only question this morning, or do you have any others?
I want to answer all of them collectively. Okay, so I'll just answer that for him. Okay, with respect to the passport of the gentleman you referred to, the question asked in Parliament recently was diplomatic positions. He does not hold a diplomatic position with respect to his passport. His passport is still a valid passport, and I'm not sure the date of expiry. What happens with a lot of these appointments, diplomatic appointments, is at the end of the diplomatic appointments or the end of the passport, at the point of the passport expiry date, we do a review and then we determine whether or not to renew. I would have to review his, but he does not have a diplomatic appointment at this time, despite the fact that he will hold a diplomatic passport because of him holding a diplomatic position in the past.
Kalishra, if you're still there, do you have any other questions? I also sent a message to you in the chat, but I'm not seeing any response. Are there any other questions from any other journalists this morning before we put a wrap on things?
Hello?
Yes, Kalishra, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, my internet is delaying from the lightning strike. I know that he is not a diplomat in the international relations sense of the words. But he did have a diplomatic passport, the one where the government says you can't claim, for instance, diplomatic immunity. So this is a passport I'm referring to.
I understand.
It is confirmed by your ministry that he was awarded one of those passports. What I'd like to know is, was it revoked?
No, it was not revoked. I answered that question earlier. I'm not sure if you're hearing me clearly. You seem to be going.
Kalishra, just to clarify, the minister has provided a response to that question. Your audio connection is very bad. We're having great difficulty hearing you. If you can hear me, please send your questions via text pretty quickly so that we can get them addressed. In the meantime, do we have any other journalists who have further questions for the minister? Okay, we don't seem to have any more questions. Kalishra, we are going to wrap up here, but if you do have further questions, send them to me and we'll get the responses to you later during the course of the day. Minister, I know you've said quite a lot this morning. Do you have any wrap-up comments to make?
Just as I said earlier, thanks to everyone who's made my job much easier in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's been challenging at times. We have challenges for development. The Ministry for Foreign Affairs is a ministry that is a conduit for development assistance to the country, is a conduit for diplomatic engagements. So we've done a lot. But as I said when I responded to Linda, I will give a full report on my tenure as Minister for Foreign Affairs in due course. Thank you, and do have a wonderful morning.
Thank you very much, Honorable Peter David, the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Labour, who has been the facilitator on this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. We trust that, as usual, you have gotten a wealth of information from the discourse this morning. To the journalists present, thank you very much for being in attendance and for putting forward the questions that you have. To members of the viewing public who have tuned in via radio, television, or social media platform, we thank you so much for being with us again. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
With all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to you, all of you listening, all of you tuned in on the various radio stations, 97.5 City Sound FM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 Real FM Radio, 92.9 Sister Ral Radio out of Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. Of course, those of you on the live stream, good morning to you. We're just coming out on the heels of a post-cabinet briefing that was facilitated by the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Labour, Minister the Honorable Peter David, who provided us with a lot of information, a lot of updates as it relates to diaspora engagements, as it relates to investments, as it relates to the legalization / decriminalization of marijuana, and so many different topics were addressed this morning. So I'm really hoping that the people were listening, that they were tuned in, that they were taking notes of what is going on. Of course, we know on Friday, hopefully, fingers crossed, they're still looking at the ins and outs of it, but the Prime Minister should address or give an address at the UN General Assembly. So we look forward to that. We look forward to what he's going to say, how he's going to address. And of course, they are all excited because it's an opportunity for all nations around the world to meet. And of course, you'd get a really good idea of what's going on with everyone, how everyone is dealing and handling COVID-19. Now, of course, we hope very soon that we'll be able to have the Honorable Minister here with us in studio so that we can get deeper into some of the questions, get deeper into some of the issues, get deeper into some of the things that have been discussed. However, we still want to talk about, and we don't have much time this morning, of course, because, you know, we end at 11:40 to facilitate the national report at the end of the program as opposed to the beginning. So what we're going to do is we are going to open the lines very early, or well now, of course, so people can get involved in the conversation and add their 2 pence. And we are going to continue along the topic of the decriminalization of marijuana. We've spoken about it. There was a discussion on this morning on To the Point about it. And I like in no uncertain terms that the that the Minister of Labour, he put it the best way. Honorable Peter David, he put it the best way. We are happy. You know, sometimes you got to give credit where it's due, right? You know, we happy. The National Democratic Congress has expressed that they are ready to collaborate, they're ready to talk, they're ready to discuss the topic of legalization. However, he made it very clear today and last night on Beyond the Headlines that he hopes that it is not an issue similar to that of the referendum. I'm not sure if many of you understood what happened during the referendum, where we had them saying, yes, we agree, but. And then at the very end, they campaigned against. So you have to do things because you believe that it is going to be beneficial for your country and not because you want to play political football, you know, as the minister put it. And he's absolutely right. You know, some issues just need to be national issues and not political issues that are meant to be discussed for the development of the people of Grenada. And you know, that's how we have to look at it, and that's how we must continue to look at it, as national issues and not issues that would get us a little political mileage. And I could be wrong, but it is in my firm belief that the reason why they apparently think they took in front and decided that they were going to have a press conference and they were going to discuss and agree that we should adopt Carriacou's approach to the decriminalization of marijuana, as the minister discussed. What they agreed on is that each country must find the best model, and it's what we discussed here yesterday as well. you can't just jump into the thing like that. You have to find the best model that suits your country, that suits Grenada. It's not a push and pull issue. It's not an agree or disagree issue. It's an issue that requires consultation, deep, detailed consultation, because not everyone is going to agree that it needs to be decriminalized. Not everyone is going to agree with all of the measures that are going to be put in place to make it easier. Not everyone is going to agree, and that is why consultation is important, so that we can meet a middle, because this is a national issue. This is something that is going to affect Grenadians on a whole, not just smokers or users of marijuana, but people who don't use, people who probably will never use but are interested in planting and selling, people who use just for medicinal purposes, people who use for recreational purposes. Whatever the issue, whatever the use of it is, it still requires in-depth conversation, and that is why I found it very irresponsible of them, to go out there on a limb and just make a broad statement like that without the proper consultation. Maybe it would have been easier to say to the government, listen, we're ready to start the consultation. Where can we start? Where can we help? It felt to me like it was a boxing match, and you go in the ring and you're calling out and say, listen, we here. So we challenging you to meet us and let's fight to the death. To me, that's what it felt like, But it requires a lot of consultation, a lot of thought, right? Remember, the number to call is 440-7377 if you are calling locally. If you are in the diaspora and you want to give us a call as well, the number to call is 347-329-3101. The minister did also make a lot of mention as it relates to the diaspora policy, engagement with the diaspora, what entitlements because they're Grenadians. Diaspora, wherever you are, whichever country you come from or you reside in, you are Grenadians, So what entitlements do you have as members of the diaspora, And these things are things that we do need to start talking about. We do need to start considering. We do need to start putting in place so that diaspora members can feel more included, They make investments in Grenada and they need to know where their investments are going. They also need to know what other investments can they make. So it's something that we definitely do need to take into consideration. It is a lot of things that we do need to start discussing, but I am happy that the conversations have started. We often say here that sometimes we could fault government a little bit for not being as quick with information as they should be, putting the information out there and listening to Beyond the Headlines last night, that young lady, I agreed with her on the level of, she is right. We do need to be more forthcoming with information, The information is easily accessible, yes, but we need to make it more accessible to the people. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. How are everything?
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, in our daily life, as we travel, we meet different people. We see and we talk. We discuss all different topics of things. All right? And I do believe that we are, as a government, put out that suggestion outside there. It is something that is good and you put and discuss. All right? So that the people could people see definitely and they give their views on it. Because some people have the tendency, when you put up something there, you want to do it, better is to put it into the public. Let the public discuss, give the opinion about it. All right? But when you put it out, some people will take it as well, yes, you want to legalize that, Because they already believe, but speaking about it, the government want to do it. But it's important to discuss it because, as I said in the beginning, that in our daily life, we discuss different topics. All right? As a church person, we discuss about things, that football, we discuss in the spiritual and physical realm. All right? But that doesn't mean because we still discuss certain things that we agree. So there's a story on two sides. All right? Yes, it might go for different things, but I don't agree with it. But it's important to discuss it. So like people get a different opinion about it. And Ms. Duncan, I would say to the other Minister of Foreign Affairs, he's a very exciting minister. He did what he had to do. And I do believe whatsoever ministry put under Peter David, he will perform. And all the ministers of government that portfolio, they are multi-talented, and you could depend on them to be successful in every ministry. So I want to say, as they prepare to take over in October the 5th, the new ministry region, God bless it, and a productive year as we end 2020. Ms. Duncan, have a wonderful day. God bless you.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution to that conversation. Of course, we know that he is going to do his best. Agriculture, he has said before, is something that he is quite passionate about. So, of course, he will do his best to ensure that he meets the needs of the farmers. And as he said this morning, and which I fully agree with, he hopes that when it comes the time, when he calls on all of the people who have been very vocal about agriculture, who have been vocal about wanting to see more done in agriculture, he hopes that when he calls on them, that they are readily available to be there, to take up the mantle, to get to work on getting agriculture where it needs to be. We're going to take a short break as we facilitate the government notices, and then we will be back with more conversation as it surrounds the legalization of or decriminalization of marijuana. Stay tuned for more on that topic as we take a short break.
This is your government notices for today, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. Hello, this is your government notices for today, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. I am Caroline Peters. Following the election of the new representative of Senate, Roderick Sinclair, current manager of the Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association, received the nod of farmers and fishfolk to succeed Dr. Dunstan Campbell as their representative in the upper house of Parliament. Campbell recently resigned, citing medical reasons. The name of the newly elected representative will now have to be sent to the Prime Minister for consideration, in accordance with Section 24(2)(c) of Grenada's Constitution, along with the setting up of an office to have the representative interface with farmers and fishfolk. St. Clair is hoping to encourage the consumption of more local produce and states we need to address from a national level how does the farmer and his products become more consumable locally. The Ministry of Agriculture expresses its gratitude to all farmers and fishfolk who participated in the process. Payment of the Support for Education Empowerment and Development Program will continue in various communities this month. The Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment informs beneficiaries of SEED that their monthly payments will begin on Wednesday, September 23rd and end on Friday, September 25th, 2020. The full payment schedule will be released via various media platforms and also posted to the Ministry's Facebook page. Please note that all social distancing protocols are enforced. For more information, please contact the Ministry's helpline at 440-4787 or 440-2269. The Caribbean Research and Development Institute has collaborated with the Food and Agriculture Organization in offering a solar energy drying project geared at producing flour out of root crops. At a costing of US $69,000, this initiative, which will be run as a pilot project, ties in with Grenada's thrust in dealing with effects of climate change on crop production. The idea behind this project is to use solar energy in processing of foods, with the hope that it can be adapted on a wide scale, thus reducing the impacts of climate change. These solar dryers can be used for all root crops, but will specifically focus on sweet potato flour for this project. Due to the challenges COVID-19 presented for food security, there has been an increased interest for sweet potato planting materials. The initiative was launched virtually and is now setting up the systems to get the project off the ground. The plan is to have 2 solar dryers housed with 2 root crop farming groups on the island. Work will begin in October and will run until December. The Climate Smart Agriculture and Rural Enterprise Program is currently holding a food and nutrition training on utilization of selected agricultural crops. This training has been facilitated by the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council to the Extension Division of the Ministry of Carriacou and PT Martinique Affairs. Today, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020, is the last day of training. It will be held at the Hillsborough Secondary School from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. For further information, please call 442-0105 or 435-6802. And now for your government reminder. The Traffic Department of the RGPF wishes to remind the general public and in particular motorists of the following temporary traffic arrangements as the result of the closure of Maris Hill. From 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Motley Hill will be one-way traffic in an upward direction towards Sans Souci Public Road. During this period, there will be no right turn onto Motley Hill from Independence Avenue Public Road. From 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., Motley Hill will be one-way traffic towards the direction of Mount Gay and River Road. During that period, there will be no left turn onto Motley Hill from Independence Avenue. There will be no parking on both sides of Motley Hill and Sans Souci Public Road. Heavy trucks and large vehicles are advised to use the Mount Parnassus Public Road. Motorists are advised to exercise caution and expect delays. The Traffic Department apologizes for any inconvenience caused. This has been your government notices for today.
Our government notices for today. We try every day and we will continue to try every day to provide you with those government notices so that, you guys have a clearer idea of what is happening in government and on the island and so on. We are going to be able to take just a few calls, maybe 2 or 3 more calls, because there are some notices that I do want to share with you. One of which actually is to do with the fogging schedule. As we know, dengue fever is very prevalent now in the Caribbean community. St. Vincent, I think it is, yesterday sent out a release stating that they are battling with the effects of dengue fever on the island. So it is very important for us to ensure that we clean up our surroundings. I mean, nobody even have to tell us that. You ain't have to listen to me on radio or Ministry of Environment and so on. They don't have to come and tell you to clean up your environment. You should know that you have to clean up your environment. As soon as a little bit of rain falls and you have cans and plastic bags or anything that can be used as a breeding site for these mosquitoes, they will thrive, right? So we want to ensure that, please, as much as possible, clean up your surroundings. But the Ministry of Health, Government of Grenada, they are going to assist by fogging, right? But we all know fogging alone is not going to do it. So tomorrow, actually starting from today, Tuesday, from Cook Hill Road and the surrounding environment, from 4 p.m. they'll be fogging in that area. The town of Grenville, including the lane, they'll be fogging in that area tomorrow from 4 p.m. And on Thursday, they'll be doing the town of Grenville once again, including Canal Road, right? And that is at 4 p.m. So if you know that you have any underlying respiratory conditions, you want to ensure that you take yourself out of the situation, or that you at least protect yourself so that you don't get, sick, or it doesn't agitate your condition anymore. Now, in addition to that, we have, I believe it's one of the... Let me see if I can find it here. Ocean Spirits, right? They are having a beach cleanup, or several beach cleanups, right? And they've provided a schedule. So all of the environmentalists that we have actual environmentalists and those who are environmental professionals on social media, this is an opportunity for you to give back to the environment. Sometimes we just spend a lot of time talking about the environment on social media and throwing shade and pointing fingers and making blame, and then we do absolutely nothing ourselves. So this is an opportunity for you now to go out and to give back to the environment. They're starting their beach cleanup on they started actually on the 19th of September with the True Blue area. The 20th they did the Vera Beach and Sandy Island in St. Patrick's. So from the 25th, the True Blue Main Road and Beach in St. George, they'll be doing that. The Paradise Beach and the Paradise and the Lauriston Point in Carriacou on the 27th, right? And then, of course, they have some other locations which have dates that they want to announce. They're doing an underwater cleanup in Grand Anse. The Irwin Bay in St. George, Darby Beach in St. Patrick, White Island, and Maboya Island in Carriacou, and Windward in Carriacou. So Ocean Spirits is doing a lot in terms of the environmental cleanup, beaches, and so on. But it's up to us to also do our part and to join. So we're going to take a few more calls. The number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally. If you're in the diaspora and you want to give us a call, it's 347-329-3101. You can also send your questions via WhatsApp, or you can go ahead and put your questions in the chat box on the online live video as we continue the conversation about the decriminalization of marijuana. What are your views? What do you think needs to be done? Where should the consultation start? Because in our opinion, the medical professionals, along with leading groups in society, do need to start this consultation. They need to talk, including the legal fraternity, about how and what is the best approach. What suits Grenada best? And it's not something that we need to use and play political football. It is not something that requires us to pull out of a bag and then we decide all of a sudden because it doesn't give us the points that we want politically, we decide that we're just going to shut it down. It doesn't work like that. You've started the conversation, so now let's continue. Let's do it the right way, right? Let's see who we need to consult with, how we need to start the consultation, and where we need to go from here as it relates to the decriminalization. What laws need to be amended, what laws need to be changed, I do remember this morning someone saying, I want to call name. I don't want to call name, but a certain individual on a very well-known program indicated that we do not have a rehabilitation board, which is incorrect, right? Because the government of Grenada appointed a rehabilitation board for offenders, right? And since then, they have approved a total of 91 applications, right, for the expungement of criminal records since its inception. And it was incepted in January of 2018. All right, in keeping with the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, which came into force in November of 2017. So sometimes when I listen to people talking, I wonder, and that person was a lawyer, so they should know that. It's not some random person just saying something that they have no knowledge of. That is incorrect. It was a lawyer that said that. So it leaves me to wonder if that is what you have, a legal mind just willfully misleading people, on these kind of things. What does that say about them? What do they think about us as a Grenadian population? Because that is something that is easily verifiable. That is something that you can just pull up an old newspaper article and find. It is not something that is hidden. It's not a secret. It's been there. So we do have a rehabilitation board that is already in place. So if that is the case, when we start the conversation surrounding the decriminalization, then we have people already in place to look at those young people who have been affected as a result of maybe, they carry a spliff or whatever it is, and they've had a criminal record as a result of it. So things are already in place. So don't let anybody try to mislead you into believing that nothing is going on and this thing is not there and so on. We have that. Right? And of course, the laws of Grenada, they provide the magistrate to fine a minimum of $250,000 for the possession of marijuana, which is scientifically called cannabis, right? But as of November 2017, Grenada enforce the rehabilitation offenses legislation, which provides a person with convictions for possession of marijuana to have their records removed after 4 years. That is there. It is there in the law, So we have to be very, very careful of what we let people tell us. Do the research, get the facts. The information is there. As a lawyer, she really should have known that, and if she knows this and is willfully misleading us as a people and also as a lawyer, that's very disappointing. Very, very disappointing, So we have to be very careful. Don't let anybody fool you into believing that nothing is being done or there's nothing in place to deal with these issues, and that is why they had to speak out. In my opinion, again, I believe that they spoke out because they felt like it was something that would give them a little bit of political mileage, and that is why even the Prime Minister, as the Minister of Labour and Foreign Affairs said, the Prime Minister was not in agreement with it, But later down the line, he saw things differently. It's like all of us, sometimes we think about something, especially women. We are prone to always change our minds. It's just in our nature, We think something one day, 2 years down the line, when situations and circumstances and proper information is provided, then we see things differently. And I want to play for us quickly a quick clip of the Prime Minister, because they keep pushing the clip of Prime Minister saying that he does not agree or he will not legalize or decriminalize marijuana. They keep playing that. But let us also play this clip, this, let me see here. This small clip that shows the Prime Minister speaking. And it came from a program that was done. Let me see if I find it here for you. I'll pull it up for you, where the Prime Minister spoke in regards to the decriminalization of marijuana. And he made it absolutely clear. That things change and time changes as well. Let me see if this is the one. I think that is the long video. I'm trying to find a short one so I could play it for you. But hopefully by tomorrow we should have that available for you. So we have to be very careful. Don't let anybody mislead you into believing this nonsense that nothing is being done. It will happen. Whether it happens now or it happens in the next 5 years or the next 10 years, whenever it happens, we need to be ready. We need to put things in place so that we can prepare for this eventuality. And don't say it hit you by surprise. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll make closing statements, of course, because we have to facilitate the national report. We'll take a short break, and then we will be back with some more information for you.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy.
To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal.
When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
On this same marijuana issue, and I know that the opposition is pushing that they were the first to speak on it and they were in front. And let me play quickly for you that clip where he spoke on this 2 years ago. We're speaking about June the 22nd, 2018.
We're hearing about countries that are placing less importance and criminalizing the use of marijuana and other form of recreational drugs. But it's an area that we have to examine, and maybe in a sense that while on our books we still have one smoking a joint of marijuana considered to be a criminal offense, we may have to examine to some extent that area of activity, because we want to spend the police time in dealing with much more major problems than just having to confront one using a joint or two of marijuana outside.
All right, and there you had it. And that was 2 years ago, June 22nd, 2018. So that is why I said, with all this knowledge that we now have, and when we listen to the opposition speak, sometimes we wonder what is the reason behind what they are doing, because some of the things that they say are generally to mislead. And it's also things that we can easily verify. Facts can never be disputed, and it's not about who spoke about it first. It's not about who said what first. This isn't a race. This isn't a game. It isn't a challenge. What it is a conversation that needs to happen. What it is consultation needs to happen. What it is we need to look at this as a national issue and not a political issue, not something that can be used to gain votes or gain political mileage, but something that can be used for the betterment of the Grenadian economy, for the betterment of the Grenadian healthcare. Because guess what? There are a lot of people who use, or around the world, use marijuana for a lot of medical reasons, who it helps a lot of people with respiratory illnesses and so on. So it is not something that we can play political football with. And I agree with the minister when he says that he hopes that this is not a reoccurrence of the referendum, where 1 minute you agree, and because you find it in swaying in your direction, you just start to disagree. So we have to be very careful with all of these things. And when we listen attentively to understand and not just to respond. So it is up to you now to decide or to start conditioning your mind to thinking about this holistically, this as a national issue, to look at it from all angles, to look at all of the areas that it will affect, whether positively or negatively, and for us to start the consultation on every level so that we can move forward in this new venture, because it is going to be a new venture, and it is going to be a challenge for us as Grenadians. We'll see how it goes as time goes by. Guys, it's always a pleasure being here with you. As we say here every day, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we don't ever want to be talking about you. Please enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the national report. Have a wonderful day, guys.
www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
Grenada Cocoa Association boasts of increased crop production. We'll have details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Monday, September 21st, 2020, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The Grenada Cocoa Association is boasting of an increase in the production of cocoa in one parish. We hear more about this increase in this Mina Booker report.
COVID-19 may just be the impetus needed for the cocoa industry to advance further, as the Grenada Cocoa Association has recorded a 2% increase in production in one parish despite the implications of the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown imposed as a result of a state of emergency that was experienced here a few months ago. The increase is one of the accomplishments of the association in 2020. Chairman of the GCA, Christopher Williams, revealed the increase of production in St. David at the GCA's annual general meeting on Thursday, 17th September at the Deluxe Cinema, Grenville. This increase has prompted the association to recommence the buying of wet cocoa and the processing of cocoa beans, having received the permission of the Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association to utilize its Mali facility for that particular purpose. He says the association is pleased to venture into this direction as they aim to meet the international standard status of its buyers and as well as maintain the fine flavor of cocoa beans.
We are committed to letting the farmers have no less than 80 cents in the dollar that we get for cocoa. That commitment will stand as long as I'm chairman. We're not going to lower that. This is about the first time we are ending a cocoa year without much stock on hand. And we give God thanks and praise for that. And we look forward to being able to continue to manage our overdraft so that it would not be a burden for our farmers.
Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Michael Stephen, congratulated the association on the efforts to increase production in St. David.
During the period, there was a slight improvement in production of 2% over the 2018 period, which was attributed mostly to a 45% increase in production in the area of St. David. In this regard, the Ministry of Agriculture wishes to applaud the efforts of the farmers of St. David, which at the same time challenging the farmers in other parishes to replicate this as a part of a national drive to increase production. While an increase in production is excellent news for the industry, it will definitely be more refreshing if such increase coincides with increased prices on the international market, thus realizing greater benefits for hard-working farmers.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Lands challenges the Board of Directors of the Grenada Cocoa Association to be more strategic in the negotiations to avert further deductions in pricing. The Grenada Cocoa Association will continue working on many other initiatives as it aims to continue to increase production and exports of the crop.
What are our plans for the future? The Agricom project, where special farmers would be, especially the St. David's area where we have done a lot of work, and we have seen St. David's move from the bottom to number 3 in cocoa production. We are working on solar energy for the chocolate factory and the opening of the restaurant, crop insurance for farmers, and the last one, which is mountainous, difficult, modernizing the GCA Act.
For the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Mina Booker.
Thank you, Mina. Sandoz La Sauce Grenada says doing nothing to restart tourism in Grenada is not an option. As a result of this, the hotel has developed what it calls a Platinum Protocol program, which has been shared with tourism partners as a base for restarting the local industry. Over the weekend, Sandoz Grenada held a meeting with stakeholders to share the proposed protocol and discuss how it can be adopted by other organizations. The hotel is planning to reopen its doors Thursday, October 1st, 2020. Sandoz General Manager Peter Fraser said the protocol program used some of the local health advisories in its quest to protect both lives and livelihoods.
In order to find the right balance, we must first overcome fear and panic. We know the situation is serious, but we also know that unemployment, rising cost of living, rising poverty, rising crime, and the closure of businesses is also pretty serious. I believe we can protect our people while reopening this vital sector. In fact, the Director General of the World Health Organization himself has encouraged developing countries to find this balance. He acknowledged recently that all countries are facing a delicate balance between protecting their people while minimizing the social and economic damage. But he insists that it is not a choice between lives and livelihood. Countries can do both.
CEO Jeff Clark explained that careful consideration was put into the development of the protocols as it can adversely affect the number of visitors to our shores.
The reality of this challenge, according to our travel agent advisory board members, as well as a survey to our over 1 million loyalty members, is the more rigid the pre-arrival process is, the lower the demand for that island. We see this trend in our daily bookings, and more importantly, cancellations for future arrivals. I say this not to recommend for a weak arrival process, but just to share the feedback that we have to consider. As Peter mentioned, a balanced way forward is the successful way forward. Today, we hope to convince you that we are over-prepared to take on this challenge. Our future together is bright.
The hotel will be working along with American Airlines to develop a rapid testing program for visitors traveling to Sandoz Hotel in any destination. The protocols will consider online check-ins, frequent cleaning of rooms and changing of linen, fogging and use of chemicals to sanitize rooms, the use of UV lights to check rooms for marks and residues, temperature checks, and the constant supply of PPEs for staff, all geared towards providing a brand new experience for the guest. This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. Government ministers are applauding Sandoz Grenada on the steps taken to welcome guests to its property from October 1st. Health Minister Honorable Nicholas Steele stressed the importance of hotels and other organizations adapting to the new way of doing business. He said globally measures must be implemented to protect lives and livelihoods as everyone has to learn to live with COVID-19.
We do have now to focus just as much energy, if not more,
to protect livelihoods. And because of that, I welcome the participation of Sandals and everybody else that is here in finding a way forward to do what we always knew we would have to do, which is learn to live with COVID. We've been successful of keeping COVID as best as possible outside of Grenada. It will come. We are seeing resurgence in Europe, continued spread within the United States. So the possibility of saying that we can keep Grenada locked and maintain some form of livelihoods is becoming more and more a reality, that is not possible, that we have to find a way to bend some of what we have been holding hard and fast to, but to do so with science, to do so with consultation, and to do so with a common goal, which is to maintain our livelihood. So as we move forward, our catchphrase is, and still continues to be, protecting lives, but is also to protect livelihoods.
Minister Steele pledged his government and the ministry's commitment to make the necessary adjustments to ensure that Grenada is ready to welcome visitors when Sandals reopens its doors.
We may not be perfect, but to get it right, and therefore to have a mechanism to adjust and self-correct as quickly as possible. Under the guidance and advice of Dr. Bert Braffett and those others who are around me that have I get the praises and the criticism, but it is the team. It is only because of the team that we've been able to do this. So thank you all.
Tourism Minister Honorable Clarice Modeste Kerwin reiterated that it can't be business as usual. She challenged hoteliers, tour operators and organizations to get creative, find new adventures and make each experience different for visitors as a means of encouraging them to make Grenada the destination of choice.
We must be innovative. We can't come with the same old. Grandans Beach will always be Grandans Beach, beautiful. But people want experience. They want something different because it's going to be harder to convince them to come back now that you have little difficulties. They have to sanitize, they have to wear a mask. What are we offering them to say? In spite of having to do these things, you need to come to Grenada. What are we offering? We got to come up, you have to find another way to make diving fun. Because some of our visitors are repeat visitors. And I know we're working on some more underwater sculptors, and I hope very soon we can have those so that we can put that when we market Grenada.
Finally, in the news, the Alliance of Evangelical Churches Grenada took to the streets on Saturday in an island-wide motorcade, giving thanks to God for sparing Grenada during the period of the global pandemic. President Devon Rashay spoke with GIS, saying that the country has many reasons to be thankful.
For us, we believe that because of the favor of God upon this nation, when you look at what is happening throughout the world, we notice that there's a lot of turmoil. We notice that there are many countries, even within the Caribbean region, that is still battling with this pandemic. There's a lot of community spread. There have been many deaths, hundreds of thousands of deaths. And we believe that Grenada has special reason to give thanks. We have not had a single death within our country. And certainly while we sympathize with the families who have lost loved ones in the diaspora and so on, we believe that there are many reasons to give God thanks. I know there are some people who is going to say, well, the pandemic is not over. But in reality, we know the nature of the God that we serve, that He'll always watch over us, that He'll always look over us. And beyond the pandemic, God has always been a good God over this country. And we believe that there's a reason why we should pause to say thank you, united as a church, with one voice and as a nation.
He highlighted other initiatives of the Alliance, one being the delivery of care packages to families in need.
There are many things that we have done. Certainly one of our priorities in this time is the psychosocial support of persons who are dealing with different issues. Some of those issues are spin-off issues out of the pandemic, persons who have lost jobs and that have caused some level of depression in some cases, families that have somehow or the other been placed under other pressures that is either related or sometimes unrelated to COVID-19. And so we will continue giving that type of support.
The motorcade began at the Grenada National Stadium and journeyed through St. David to the north through the west and ended in St. George's. That story just ended the national report for today, Monday, September 21st. Let's recap the top story. Grenada Cocoa Association boasts of increased crop production. On behalf of the entire news and production team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.